Hi, this is the Drupal usability meeting for March 5th, 2019, and we're gonna look at some media and some layout stuff. I think media we can start with and then give it over to layouts.
All right, so yeah, we're only going to take 15 minutes. We have one issue that is very important for us to land, and it requires usability sign-off. So that is what we are hoping to get today. So Sean, I think, has that spun up, so I'll turn it over to him.
Yes, let me share my screen real quick. It's about issue 3023801. Allow newly uploaded files to be deleted from the media library without saving them. So basically, if you upload or add media that you shouldn't have, for example, with sensitive information in it, you should be able to remove that or undo adding that item without it having without it being saved and being accessible for other users. So this adds the remove button in the top corner here after you add stuff, and let me show what it looks like. So you are on an article, you click add media, you upload some files, and it adds the remove button in the top corner here. Oh wait, shouldn't move probably, but other than that, that's basically all the patch does. Any questions?
Yeah, what happens when you click it?
Oh, sorry. So that item gets removed and the focus is shifted to the first tabbable item in the form.
And if you click the other one as well, what happens?
Then you return to the library.
All right.
I think the only thing we're missing there is like a Drupal set message or something that tells people what they just did. Because if I accidentally click that, I might not necessarily notice that.
It makes sense.
So just like, you know, blah, blah, blah was deleted or whatever. I don't know, like, however it's done.
Let me check real quick what if you add a file to a regular field. So let me just test files. So test one, remove, it says nothing.
Oh, it does say nothing there too. Interesting.
Yeah, because yeah,
it does say nothing here, but it also updates the state, so it's kind of obvious that it disappeared, I think, on this form, as opposed to the media library, which is, you know, it's essentially a wizard. So I think I kind of I still plus one Angie's idea to add a message there, particularly when you return.
Yeah, if it's not horrifically difficult. But I don't know, because I'm also sensitive to the fact that the original spec for the file upload widget from which you're drawing these designs, you know, that was done by actual usability and design people versus me, just with my opinions by looking at things. But yeah, I guess my reaction was I kind of blinked while you clicked the delete button, and then it was like I didn't see that anything happened. And then I noticed, oh, obviously something did happen because there were two things there and now there's only one. But yeah, I think in general, we show like a little message that's like such and such an action just happened so people are aware, especially if they did that by accident, so they can restore or undo their undoing.
Well, if you actually know what you're uploading and what you're removing, it might be more obvious because now I was the one doing the action and like.
Yeah, that's fair. I just mean like right now that has focus, which is probably another problem because if I hit enter right now, it's going to remove, right?
Yes, and that's an accessibility thing that I learned, but probably Andrew should comment on that one.
Because I would expect name to have focus, not remove.
Yeah, but it's not the first tabbable item in the form. So if you skip past the first item, then users with screen readers won't know it's there. Because it's in the DOM before the name field.
Mm. It's very dangerous for that to have focus by default, in my opinion.
Is there any reason we couldn't? Well, actually, no. This would be. I don't know. Let me know if this is an accessibility thing, Sean. But isn't it possible we could put the remove after the fields and just kind of style it into place up there?
Yeah, that's what I would recommend. That is not the primary action on this at all. It's a destructive action. It is something you want to really have to navigate to be sure that that's what you're doing.
Even though it's true, I think the WCAG specification says the visual order must match the the DOM order and the tabbing order. So that means,
well, we could still have it match the tabbing
right
order.
Though. It's like my left to right would be I'd see the image first, which I can't do anything with, then name, then alternative text, then remove. Like that's the visual order.
That's how I read it as well, left to right. So I mean, I guess we could get confirmation from Andrew about that, but my feeling is that putting it afterwards and then just styling it up into the top right is probably legit.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
No, it's legitimate. You're going top to bottom, then it's you're going to go name, alternate text, and then you move over to the right. It's 2 columns too visually, so I agree with you.
That
Andrew,
would probably change if you make it smaller.
I wouldn't make it small. Like it looks great. Like I wouldn't change anything about how it looks.
No, I'm just saying if you have a smaller screen.
Yeah, I know but the tab order. I think it's more
still not. I still is not like over on the right, seeing this thing and then bouncing back to the left and seeing like you're gonna scan it like left to right. So even in a smaller screen, like if you scrunch up the window, that X is still very far off to the right.
So that would mean that you tab to name first, then the remove button, and then the alternative text.
No, because name and alternative text logically fit together. So I would tab name, alternative text, remove.
Okay. Even though I agree, we really need Andrew's opinion on this, because from what I've understand from other issues where we have a button in the top right corner, if it's visually above something else, there is a good chance that it needs to be tabbable before. But all the other things I totally agree with. I just, and I
personally like. We'll see what he says. I'm pinging in the accessibility room right now to see. I have a question about tab DOM order. But I think the overriding concern is that the default action is destructive. So even if it caused a WCAG violation, that is better than like a data integrity violation.
I also totally agree. And it's no big deal to change the order.
I mean, the other thing to me is like if the DOM order and the visual order always had to be exactly the same, then like what's the point of having things like positioning or flexbox?
The specification specifically mentions that you should really watch out what you're doing when you're using that.
No, fair enough. So yeah, I guess we just kind of need Andrew's okay that this is legit.
Okay, so how about something else, by the way? So what do we think about having the remove text not visual at first and only on hover?
I don't personally have an opinion on that. I think that's fancier than it needs to be. Like I feel like just an X is fine. But I know that that's how it was designed, and that's hey, there's somebody from me. Take this way. Oh, Andrew's here. Hey, Andrew.
Hey. Andrew, just in time.
Yeah.
Hi. So, what we were discussing is the remove button when you added media. So let me show real quick what happens. You are in the media library and you add files. And after that, you get the form to fill in required fields, and we've added a remove button here just in case you've uploaded something that you shouldn't have. And I've moved the focus to the first tabbable element in the form, which is the remove button. And this is a destructive action, so we probably shouldn't move the focus there, but we have an accessibility thing here that the visual order kind of states that the remove button is first, which is something we should discuss. Do you have an opinion on that?
Can we go back a step to how we arrived at that?
Yes, sure.
It was, you're in there, now the add files.
Yes, so I select 2 items. And then we go to the form with the required fields.
Okay, I've not seen whatever I need to get that working yet, but so the way that this is built around jQuery UI's dialog, and the thing that gets focus is there's a bunch of fallback rules that are built into jQuery UI, and what it does by default is put you on the first thing. So that's what we've got there, and it turns out to be the remove button. So this is something that bugs me a lot, actually. It'd be really handy to know if there was any way that we could programmatically set which was going to be the thing to take focus. The tab in order, I think there's 2 options. We can either leave it as it is, the remove gets the cross, and that is the remove gets focus first, and that is that's the default. It's the first thing in the tabbing order, and there won't be any surprises visually with what's in the tabbing order. The thing I'm wary of is moving focus to a destructive button, because you can easily do something like press enter twice, and then you've uploaded something, and then removed it straight away. On the other hand, it's not a complete deal breaker if it is ending up there. The other option then is to just change the actual DOM order there. So you would end up with name as the first one that you landed on, and then you'd have a bit of extra effort to tab towards the remove button. But I'm guessing a bit of extra effort to tab towards the remove button is fine, because you've just uploaded it. You probably don't want to remove it, most likely. So yeah, the visual
exploring, but we weren't sure. Like, one thing that Sean was really concerned about is if we run into that same issue we talked about last week about the WCAG A level thing of the tab order and the DOM order not matching. Because I agree, like visually, I see this as add or select media, the title, then the image, thumbnail thing, which you can't do anything with, so there's nothing to tab to, but then name, alternative text, and then remove. Because my eyeballs bouncing from left to right.
So you've hit the thing I was about to say. What you've got there is you've got we talk about focus order matching reading order, and if you're reading a book, that means left to right, top to bottom along a single column. But if you're reading a newspaper or a magazine where things are in multiple text in multiple columns, you go through one column and then you go through the second column. So you could arrange this so that it went name, text alternative, then remove.
That's a very easy change for me. So if that's okay. Then,
we wanted to ask you exactly that, if that would be okay.
Yeah, there's enough visual sort of left-right separation that you can probably get away with that.
Yeah,
and you can adjust the height.
So if I make the screen a little bit smaller, then it could get a little weirder, but still probably this would be read before this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will change that. And the second question, which is also probably an accessibility thing, the text remove, it's now visually hidden by default, and only on hover you see the text. And we probably need feedback on if that's okay from an accessibility perspective, and also the color change.
Okay, so the color change is not going to be an issue, really. The important thing about color is not to convey anything by color alone. And you haven't, because you've got this X icon, which is commonly understood as a shape, and you've got the actual text. The issue about it hover, it's going to appear when you hover or focused, right?
Yes. So
Yeah.
if I focus on it, you also
see. Screen reader users are fine because the text is there. Sighted keyboard users are fine because the text is there. Hover capable pointer users are fine. If you can't hover, you've got a finger, say. Again, you're probably fine as long as you understand what X means. And for speech control users, you would probably use the feature where you say show numbers, and it would put like a 1 next to the first remove, and however many, a 4 next to the second remove. So I think that's okay.
Perfect. And we also have an ARIA label that mentions the file name.
Now I'm more skeptical. What's the ARIA label at?
It's remove and then the file name.
Show me the DOM, please.
Oh, crap. Where is the ARIA label? So that's this one. Do you see this?
That's okay. That passes.
Okay.
There's a thing that came in WebCAG 2.1 called label in name. And that's where you have visible text, which is different to the ARIA label. Like if you had, because the ARIA label completely overrides the visible text. It's not, a lot of people mistakenly think it's a supplement, and that the visible and the ARIA label combine. But the ARIA label overrides it. So the rule is whatever the visible text is, which is remove, has to be in the ARIA label. So that passes.
Okay, then I think we have all the information we need.
And that's just in time because we're out.
Yeah.
We are out of time to talk about media. So that is. It sounds like we pretty much got sign off on all this.
Yes. So change the tabbing order, and we're done.
Change the tabbing order. If it's not too much of a hassle, add a message saying confirming that you just deleted it. But other than those two things, and that second piece of feedback is not a blocker, I don't think, because the current behavior doesn't do that. But yeah, sounds like we're good from an accessibility point of view, which was definitely the worry. Okay. So yeah, but as far as a must-have goes, I think we need to get that tab order off the remove button by default. That's
yeah. If we change the DOM order, it will automatically use the name field as the first tabbable element. So,
but it can still look like visually the same, correct?
Yes, definitely.
Great. Okay, perfect then.
All right, cool. Let's talk about layout.
Yes.
Who wants to go first? Emily, were you going to present something?
Oh, no, I thought you were presenting the highlight issue.
Yep, okay.
Okay.
I'll present that one. Okay, so this is issue, I'll share my screen. This is issue number, why does this not have the node number here? Sorry. 2994909. Highlight active element when, highlight active element while working with dialogues and layout builder. I think we've presented this to the UX meeting at least once before, but we were actually wondering about a particular thing. So let's see what branch I'm on just to make sure. So here, let me just refresh it. When you highlight or when you open a block to be configured, it's going to highlight the either section or block or I guess that's, yeah, it's either add section, add block, or an existing block. The question we had was for any particular block, and I have to kind of like zoom in because it's really faint. For any particular block, when you go over it, the contextual module is going to provide a border. So I don't know if you can see that. If I go in and out, there's a little border around there's the trigger, but then there's also the little border around there. So our question was, the current behavior in the patch is it does this also with your highlighted one. It does a little border. It basically doesn't mess with the highlighted contextual border there. So so that's also active. I think that's what we are going with. The other option would be for the highlighted section only. Let's switch over to the other branch. The other option would be when you're dealing with the currently highlighted section, do the trigger highlight for the contextual links, but don't actually do the other border because we already have the highlighted border. Whereas the other blocks would still have the faint contextual module CSS highlighting. People have thoughts? So basically, the first way is leave it the way that both the contextual module and the current highlighting take effect. The other one is what you're seeing now is when a block is already highlighted, don't use the contextual, or basically try to not show the contextual one also. I mean, it's kind of hard to guarantee we're doing that because the contextual CSS, the CSS that highlights the thing for the contextual module may in another thing be different. So we can't guarantee that ours would make it not perceivable.
I'm gonna ask something that maybe is obvious for you, but what's the highlight? The thing that is highlighted, because you know the UI, but yeah, I'm not really sure if the dark border is the highlight.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess maybe highlight's the wrong word. It's just a emphasis border or something. So basically, if I add a section, this will also get the dark border.
Oh, okay.
If I configure a block, that will get it. If I add a block, the idea is to draw your eye to what. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. Anybody else?
I feel like this is largely a design question, though. So, like, Christina, do you have any opinions about? Was the question clear?
Yes. And I don't know the answer, because what comes to my mind is that when you're hovering an active link in a menu, for example, does it actually do something? I mean, even if it's still a link, can you hover and see any kind of change? So what I'm thinking is more about this and not so much about the design. Okay. So it's more like, do we need to know that we are hovering something when it is already highlighted? I would say yes, but I don't really have a strong opinion right now here fast. Because the other option was the blue border the blue dotted border, right?
The other option is basically to try to make it act the way that this block is acting, but it's kind of confusing because, yeah, I think switch branches again. I think what you're actually seeing, the blue border, see, the blue border is the thing that goes around the larger thing, but what happens is when I'm hovering over this area, the contextual module, I think, shifts things slightly, so you see that blue border for the outer one because we're letting the contextual module do its thing, which now shifts the whole thing slightly and shows you this blue border, which is not exactly the same one. I can't actually perceive.
So the blue border, what is showing? So the blue border is the region you are?
The blue border is actually the section. Because if you see, if I do the middle, yeah, if I do let me do one in the middle, maybe it's more clear.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's actually, let me do one at the top. Yeah, the blue border is actually, I guess, actually from the section, because if we do one in the middle, then we just see it on the sides. So maybe it's not the contextual one coming from the contextual module, which kind of leads me to think that this might be preferable, because I mean, the only difference here is that the trigger shows up highlighted, which to my mind kind of draws, we have this pattern of the trigger having this dotted line around it to show you what it's sort of the trigger is related to. But I feel like since this one already has an emphasis border, it kind of feels obvious to me what this trigger is related to, because there won't be multiple, and we make a point to never have multiple contextual links within a block. So if we have view inside of a block, we don't show you those nested contextual links, because we don't want you editing stuff that's not related to the layout. So it'll always be a one-to-one relationship to the contextual trigger to the highlighted thing here.
I see.
All right.
So my main problem here is that I don't want to block this with something that I'm not really sure about. It's just that it feels like you really need to learn what everything means, what each visual border means, which probably is super easy to learn. That's what I'm not really sure about. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just confusing a little bit more.
The blue border was gone and you only saw the black border, you feel like that would be clearer because it's not so much cognitive load. At least the first couple times you use this interface, you're like, why are there so many boxes everywhere? Is that basically the...
It's not that there are too many boxes, it's that they are so different between them that I'm not really sure what means each one. So now that I'm learning after the explanation, it makes sense, but I probably wouldn't end up to that. I might not end up in this conclusion if I just see a screenshot. Probably after hovering things, I will get to that conclusion. But I don't know. I mean, for example, having the blue border compared with the gray one, that is clear, because it's clear that I'm working here. So my guessing is, would that make sense to, instead of using a dark border using a blue border but without dots. I'm not sure about this. I'm just suggesting probably Emily has much more than me to say about that.
Yeah, Ben has worked on this issue more. He may know why we chose this particular color. I feel like there was back and forth on how we should highlight something. Originally we were graying out stuff that had graying out everything else, but that had accessibility implications, so we got away from that.
Okay.
And we're also doing a blue border around the whole content area to show what is able to be used by Layout Builder.
Yeah, so that's another issue that eventually we will have that blue border, around the whole thing to say, this is the thing this is the large thing that you're editing as compared to everything else on the screen. So yeah, I think we were thinking the black one of like an emphasis, but not like saying, because you can still edit everything else or everything that will eventually be in that larger blue border.
Oh, I see.
And it resembles the color of the dialogue.
But if I start thinking about a border around it, you get a lot of border. Like there's a lot of borders, like that visual. I mean, the alternate is you use background colors or fading, or you know what I mean, like.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of work to do on the visual styling to make it nicer. We're just trying to figure out what's reasonably useful right now, usable.
Yeah, it's not an easy. I see it has to be super hard to find something here because you have a lot of things to explain with just graphic elements, and it must be super hard. I don't know. I think that's fine, and I don't think it's a drama if we don't have a reaction where you're hovering this part. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, the other thing to note is we're gonna have a theming guide for the Layout Builder, because in reality, a lot of people are gonna have to change these colors. I mean, by nature of Layout Builder being previewed in your default theme, you can't really know what all the colors you're gonna have. So, for instance, if you have a light blue background, you're really gonna have to change that light blue background there to something else. I think we were sort of thinking also that the dark black would be visible in probably most light themes, though some might have to change them. Whereas if you had a dark theme, of course, you're going to have to change that. But I think that's just the nature of the preview in your default theme nature of Layout Builder, which I think adds a lot of value towards trying to do on the admin side. All right.
I don't know if you have the UX open, but Benji is providing some feedback there as well.
Okay.
If you want to respond to that one, yeah.
UX, no comments below. Say I'm watching YouTube link on the highlighted section. Effect is very visible. It looks like on. The extra border tell us the link is active.
So I think he's voting for status quo, and it sounds like Christina doesn't think status quo is a blocker. Mm-hmm. So I think, and I feel too, like if we were to make visual changes to this later, this would not be like a documentation and tutorial video invalidating change. Do you know what I mean? Like a slight nicening up, prettying up of it. It would not mean, fuck, I have to now re-record all of my Lullabot videos or whatever, that kind of thing. So maybe we'll just get clarification from him that that's what he means. But I'm comfortable with that as long as Christina doesn't feel that it's a blocker and nobody else is raising blocking concerns.
Okay.
Quick edit could use a revisit at any rate. So.
And one little thing, just stay on the screen. I'll just point out like one thing, like you have these blocks inside of blocks, and if that black border almost broke out of that dotted, like if the black border extended past the dotted lines, it would feel like, how would you put it? You're putting focus and it's this content sitting above what you're editing. And that's just like a trick with borders and negative margins, I think.
Yes.
We could get it to break out of the board, like it would break the box. And we want to break the box. We want to break this box because we want to say what you're highlighting in black is what you're editing. And if there's a trick to do that with negative, I think it's negative margins and then the border on the outset or something.
Or line also.
Ted, do you understand what I'm kind of saying? Like where it doesn't line up with the dotted line.
Yeah, I guess I'm not.
I mean, it's an outline, so the offset can be just positive or negative.
So you know, like the Kool-Aid Man and how he runs through a wall. He's saying like to the Kool-Aid Man effect, where like the entire box would expand out by like 1 millimeter on every side. Or
well, even I mean, even a drop shadow. I mean, you do any of those visual effects would put the box out. Then it wouldn't be borders inside of borders. This would become a floating box that you're actively using.
So I like that idea. My concern with that idea is then it needs to go through another round of bike shedding.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've already take this. I feel like this design, besides the contextual thing, was already here previously.
Okay.
So I mean, maybe we should make a follow up to say, you know, make the highlighted section more obvious.
Yeah.
I think it's a really.
It's a great. Oh, sorry, Christina. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say I like that general approach because then I feel like we can pursue that because I agree that with that general direction that would be more clear, and then you could kind of like just space out on the fact that there's a blue outline because you don't care and you're just focusing on the thing that has focus. But I do think that in order to get that right, it's going to take some tweaking, and I also think there's no reason to hold up layout for being stable on this.
So I'll make a follow-up, or somebody will make a follow-up that's, you know, make the highlighting more stand out more, basically.
Yeah.
Both that, Christina?
Yeah, I was just going to say that probably this and what Emily said about taking into account all the other borders and elements that are also going to be there. I mean, I will do a follow-up, just taking all of that into account and having a screenshot with all that. So it's not just about this specific border. I mean, it's more like having into account the full system. So
yeah,
could make. Just go ahead. Yeah, that's all.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess as a stable follow-up, one advantage to that would be the other stuff would potentially all be done at this point. Whereas if we tried to do the emphasis, highlight more emphasis now, it would be kind of doing it in the vacuum of the other stuff not being done.
Yeah, because you don't have like the blue border, like the affords thing here. So we're only getting part of a picture.
So the other issue that I had was, and again, this is an issue that we've talked about before, I've changed the wording a bit on the permissions. So this is a screenshot of, so to remind people, right now we have one permission, which is configure any layout, which is like an administrative big permission. Every time that you, for a content type or any other type of bundle, say, I want to allow overrides on the layout, we're going to add two permissions. One is content types. One is basically saying you can configure a layout on any article, no matter what, if you have access to it or not. All you have to have is view access, and then you can configure the layout. The other permission is to say, you can configure any layout, override, configure layouts editable by the user. So the part here that I'm having trouble with is the actual like wording of how do we say you can configure any article layout, but only if you can also edit that article. And if anybody has, so currently I just have content types of content items of content type article, configure layout overrides editable by the user, which I'm not super happy about.
Well, there's a lot of words like jargon. Wow. Huh. All right, configure any layout is clear. Configure all layout is weird.
Okay. Yeah, so
Doesn't sound grammatically right. So
yeah,
does that
yeah.
mean configure any layout attached to any articles, whether
Yes.
the user owns them or not?
Yes, yes. And so the caveat for this is that if I tried to have them slightly different before, but the way that Drupal orders the, the way that Drupal orders the permissions, it's based on the actual, you can't make a sort order, and it's ordered on the actual text. So if I change,
or something.
yeah, so if I changed this first part so that it was different from this first part here, let's see, yeah, then basically what would happen would be that the different bundles would randomly be in different order. So this first part here has to be the same order for the sort to work.
Yeah, I get that. I do not know what a content item is. That's a new word or new term to me.
We use that other place in core. Basically, we have a label for an entity type, which is content.
So is that a node?
Yes, it is a node, but we never say node in the UI
I know
anywhere.
we never say node. Content item.
I mean, I kind of.
So I'd say like content type article items or something like, you know what I mean? Like to keep them,
But
content type articles or something. You know, it's just very long worded the way it is right now.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee that a bundle label won't be the same across entity types. So
yeah, but how does the current wording address that?
So the current addresses that because content is the entity type label, and content type is the bundle label for that entity type. And then this is.
So you're saying someone could both have articles on their website and also sell articles in magazines, and one's a product and one's a
Yeah.
That is true, but like, wow, way to gum it up for everybody who's not that person. Okay, I understand why you're doing that.
I don't know, but I mean, I guess.
I would handle that with product, content type article and product type art. You know what I mean? I use the.
Yeah.
There's too many words there. Anyway,
Yeah.
but okay. So leaving that aside,
Yeah.
Configure all layout is weird. So just tell me in Drupal terms what that means. That means on any article node,
you can configure the layout regardless of whether you have edit access.
And that's different from configure any layout because configure any layout is regardless of what bundle or anything. It's like
any type,
any layout.
Any layout. Defaults. Yeah. So I could
go with content type article layouts, you know, or something like that. And it's like, hold on, I'm typing a thing. Configure any or content type article methods could be like configure own or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's accurate though.
So where did you type this in chat or something?
Sorry, that's in yeah, and I can move it to Slack instead if that's easier.
No, that's fine.
So it's $content, meaning content, product, workflow, whatever it is, type, and then article, page, blog post, whatever the name of the thing is, layouts, and then that's like the italicized thingy that groups everything together, and then say configure any or configure own.
Yeah, but it's not your own. You don't have to be the author.
Right.
It's,
okay. So what exactly does configure layout on user editable content mean?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say there is that any article that you have edit access to, you can also configure the layout for. So basically, we're tying edit access to the article to the ability to override the layout, and that kind of like the thought behind that is a lot of time the layout may be synonymous with the content. You may have a content type that is basically no or very little fields, and most of the configuration is making a landing page.
I guess
So
I'm surprised that that's its own content, that's its own permission, because I would be surprised
mhm.
if I gave that permission configure any layout and article, and
Yeah.
then I specifically use like some node access module to prevent a user from seeing a node. I would be surprised if they could edit
Oh
layout
yeah.
articles they don't have access to.
Yeah, they can't have access if they can't view it, no matter what.
But I mean, even editing it, that's weird.
Yes, if you can't edit it, you can still do the layout, and that's by design.
So what is the use case for that again? Because that seems like a security problem.
Emily, you want to?
Sure. So there are large companies that have layout editors, but they are not content editors. Usually people in marketing that are separate from the content department. And so they might shuffle blocks around, but they can't edit the content itself.
All right, maybe I will shut up for a minute and let someone else talk because my brain is exploding. But anyway, I get it now. Thank you for the clarity. I need to think.
So what Benji is saying, that content items of type article would also work and they would be shorter.
Yeah, I mean, I do see that, but it seems like the whole point of us having labels that the API provides, like the API provides human readable labels. If we ignore that and just say, okay, we're going to decide per module what a label should be for a bundle, then there's no point in having that label in the first place. There's no no uniformity across the UI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like if you have, yeah, I don't know.
Like we specifically say we have a bundle label, and it is the entity type provides it, and it is specifically human readable label. Then if we ignore those, then you're like, what is the point of having them?
Yeah.
I guess it's hard to tell just from the screenshot because it's just this screen. Like if we were seeing the overall permissions page and we could see content items of content type article repeated several times for like workflows and other things, then I think it would be less weird to be like, oh, well, that's just Drupal being Drupal. But in absence of that, it just looks verbose.
Yeah, so the other screenshot I have is, so to make it more complicated, is that we have some cases where there is not a, so if we have user items, there is no bundle of users. So there's no users of a particular type. So we say user items configure all layout overrides. So. Oh shit, this is slightly different. It should say up top here instead of article, it should probably say configure all layout overrides. But you see here with the users, it's saying user items, but not of a particular type because there are no particular types of users. But we can't, I mean, I guess we could say content type article. I mean, my problem with that is I could see a lot of entity types might provide the bundle label to just be type instead of content type, I think. And if they did that, then you would have a bunch of, if we don't specify the content, the entity type label, then any bundle, any entity type that where it says the bundle label is just type, we would have no distinguisher between them. So adding the entity label content and then content items, make sure they're in the right order, and make sure that if we have a bunch of entity types where the bundle thing is just called type, they're not intermixed, which I could definitely see having a bundle label that's just type on multiple entity types.
Yeah, I do see that concern. I just wonder how prevalent that is in the field.
Yeah. I mean, I think the sort of the problem here is that if you look at Node, and maybe if I don't know if I have it.
Ted, yeah, I'm going in that direction. Node. If you pull up the permissions and look at Node,
yeah,
then it indicates. I'm sorry, I've been staring at this for a while.
Yeah, the problem with that is that Node, all the permissions under Node deal with one entity type.
But when you think about a module declaring a type entity, then you'd almost want to think about it like really what you just highlighted is the provider, which is node : article : create new content. And if someone had type entities, you'd want, like, let's say web form did type, it'd be web form : type create new content. Maybe we just have to include the provider. Or you were including the grouping from that content items came from where in the example?
Content items. I think it came from content is the entity label for node. So, and then I forget where else in the UI we have this pattern of saying entity type label items.
However, in the past I think starting 2016, sometime something April, almost 3 years ago, we have plural labels on entity types.
I was going to just ask if we could use plural labels because user items is just batshit crazy because what you mean there is users.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You can pull the label collection from the annotation, and then you get users plural, and it's translated properly and everything.
Okay.
One other thought is,
that one.
You know how
label collection, that one.
Sorry. Yeah, that would be much better, I think.
And there's also label singular and plural if you want to go there.
Okay, so maybe this would be, let me see what node does.
That's content.
Content items.
Yeah, okay. So that comes from node itself.
Well, so actually the label collection, so user, label collection is users. This is content. So maybe we just say content. If I pulled in the label collection, content of the content type article.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would just do content : article. Like, I don't know what that is. Label collection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we don't.
Okay.
If Yoroi was here, bless his soul, he would be like, use fewer words.
Okay.
Use fewer words.
So maybe just this label collection : the bundle, the actual bundle article, then forget the bundle label.
I think so. We'd have to see how that maps out in practice. Like, would that end up being users : users then? Like, that's a weird.
No, because we know it doesn't have a bundle, so we don't have to do it.
Perfect. Yeah.
We can do it differently. Yeah.
Okay. So that sounds good. We're still no closer, though, on the actual question, which is what to call the permission, because this is just the thing to make them line up properly, right?
Yeah. So this, well, it's to shorten it down. I think like configure, I mean, I like configure all layout overrides for this one. So it would just be users configure all layout overrides. The tricky one is the one where it's dependent on the access. And I mean, we could just throw that out because it's hard to specify, but I really think it opens up the possibility to use Layout Builder in really interesting ways.
No, that was a compelling use case.
So configure layout. I mean, I could just spell it out, configure layout overrides for items that are editable by the user. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's what's basically written there now, and I needed you to explain that to me.
Yeah. For which the user already has edit access. I mean, the description tries to make it better. This permission gives users access to configure layouts for only user items that they have edit access to.
Yeah, I actually feel like the description is clear. It's the name that is not.
Yeah.
And then there's a small grammar thing, which is you're not supposed to end a sentence in a preposition. Whatever.
Yeah.
Also, what is the difference between configure all layout and configure all layout overrides? Like, is that first one like master layouts or something, or default layouts, or
the one at the bottom of the screen?
No, the one at the top.
Yeah, I think the top I just messed up. It should be overrides too. because it's always when we're giving out this per bundle permission, it's only dealing with overrides. Basically, you have a default for all articles, but then for this one particular article, you want a different layout. So I should probably change. I think that's the only place where I don't say overrides for some reason. So like if the first line doesn't say overrides, and then all the rest, the next three do. So probably that first line is wrong. So user items is more, user items configure all layout overrides is more accurate, I think.
So basically the first line of the screenshot and the last line of the screenshot would all say layout override.
No, no. The last line of the screenshot means any layout, like defaults, overrides, any layout on the site. It's like an administration one.
Got it. Okay.
And maybe we should add a description to configure any layout to specify that.
That would be good, I think. Because that's a very subtle, it's one word difference, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, those second and fourth rows, I'm still kind of scratching my head. Benji said in chat, how about the user can edit rather than editable by the user? Maybe. I don't know that.
So configure layout overrides that the user can edit?
But it's not that they can edit layout overrides. It's that they can edit the underlying article to which the layout is attached.
Yeah.
It's just a really hard concept to communicate in one thing.
Configure layout overrides for items that the user can edit.
I honestly wonder if you just configure like the last bit of the description, configure layouts for only article items that they have at more or less that, and just make that the name and ditch the description. Because that at least is clear. Configure layouts for only article items that the user has edit access to, or what the user can edit.
So configure layout overrides for only article items that the user can edit or have it. Okay.
I mean, that's horribly long and awful, but it's at least very clear what it means.
Yeah, and just no description.
Yeah, and then no description, I think, because it will be clear from the description. Yeah, I mean, I'm wincing at how long this text is going to end up being. But it seems like it's and then maybe, oh God, I don't know. I think I'm going to stop talking because I think I'm just going around in circles. But basically, if we make that one longer, it feels like we need to make the first and the third one longer to specify that that is for any article items, even if they don't have edit access to them. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a very subtle distinction. I'm not sure people will get, but I don't know. Okay, I'm stopping talking now. Muting. Bye.
Anybody else want to fill the void? So I'm good with that suggestion from Angie about the second and fourth. It is a long description, but it's more whatever it says what it says what it is. For 1 and 3, configure all. We could say configure layout overrides for all article items. Anybody have an opinion on that? My first round was to put the article, to do something like that and not put article in the before the colon. But the problem with that is then you get the sort order gets really random. Not random, but it doesn't bunch. It doesn't get, it's not bunched together by a bundle.
Okay, I really thought someone else would jump in there, but they're not. So
I'm having a problem coming up with a suggestion. I mean,
right.
I just lean toward, like, when I have problems like this, I'm just like, okay, just get very matter of fact. There's a hierarchy here, and I would strip this down to the hierarchy, which is content : article : configure all layout, and it's sortable, it's readable, it's a little, like, it's not verbose. And they have to just understand that it's content article. Or, I mean, by the way, what's frustrating is this goes on the node page, and we use, I mean, on the permissions page, and we use the word node for our content types on the permission page, which is just a bummer.
So I do think we're agreement, at least on the have content article and then a description. So that will shorten both of them down somewhat, because there won't be the content items of content type article before the colon. So that will shorten things down.
But what else?
Somewhat.
Yeah. And then it'll be italic and
yeah. And then all right. Well, I think I'm going to go with that for all, and we shall see. Is Andrew still here? No. Oh, yes.
I am still here.
I had a question, another sort of UX accessibility question about Layout Builder, and I don't have a good screenshot because I only thought of this actually when you were describing the media problem. So the issue that we made today about when you're, and I guess I can sort of show it in the part that doesn't. When you're removing a block or removing a section, and we have a new issue to say. So right now it's ambiguous what you're. Oh, it's not. It's remove. It's ambiguous what you're removing. So part of it is this title is truncated, which we need to fix that anyways. But the current title just says, "Are you sure you want to move this block?" Which doesn't tell you it's this image field block. So if you would tab, you tab to the remove thing is the second thing. I'm wondering if one way to clear this up would be to make I forget what you called the ARIA label or ARIA name label of the button to be remove image field block. So that would tell you. So for visual users, we have this. We have this border here telling you which one you're removing. And then for screen readers, we would have the button would actually read and tell them which one they're removing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what would the button have as a name?
Remove image field block.
Okay, so what you then have is, what I'm worried about there is that you're just throwing more verbosity at it. So
Okay.
you would have like a title saying, are you sure you want to remove this block? And then a button saying remove image block. And there's kind of like two separate phrases.
Okay.
I think, but it is a good point, actually, putting more context on that remove button. Because the issue that we have when the screen reader encounters a dialogue is that the dialogue is announced and the dialogue title is announced, and then focus lands on that remove button. So then the remove button gets announced, and it's the stuff that doesn't get announced is the plain text in the dialogue body.
Yeah.
So by putting the extra context onto the button, that is quite a good idea. It would be announced because that's the thing that ends up having focus land on it. I'm just not sure if. I think generally we want a general principle of a dialogue is it asks a question. and so the question should be clear.
Okay, so yeah, then I think that's the issue that's on D.O is going in the direction that you're saying. So I think that's good. That is all I had for Layout Builder. I think I'm not sure if anybody else had any issues.
I had one which I hope is brief.
I actually have to. I didn't realize it was extended till later, so I have to go. So thank you, everybody, for the feedback. It's very useful.
All right. So my layout builder issue is 2938182. It's one we visited last week, and there was some changes based on feedback. So there was enough of a change that the sign off that was granted last week would not necessarily be valid now. So I'm going to share my screen. The issue was to create an affordance, making it apparent what was being edited when the layout builder is UI is active. And so this was the solution agreed upon last week. It's a blue outline around the content area, but also around the buttons. And so this is same thing, an umami around the buttons. And then Adam H pointed out that the buttons are not being edited. So it was changed to this, where the outline is just in the layout builder area, not in the buttons. That provides that means the padding can be reduced somewhat, providing more area to work in. This is how it looks in Bartik. So the difference is really just the scope of the outline. And because of that change, I wanted to run it by the UX meeting and see if the sign-off is sustained, or if there are concerns that stem from that change.
I think that's great because the buttons aren't being edited, so that's ideal.
Yep.
All right. That was the confirmation I was hoping to hear. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? If not, maybe we didn't need to go a whole 90 minutes. I was scared by all the, oh my God, we need you guys to look at stuff.
Well, we have the file field design update, and while Andrew is here, we might.
Yeah, that one needs accessibility sign off. So if we want to take some Andrew time and let's get it done.
Yeah. So give me a second to pull up the patch.
Just real quick before we get too excited, are you okay to stick on another 20 minutes, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm good. I would say that for something like a file upload thing, I actually want to use it in anger on a bunch of devices for sign off. But yeah, let's have a look at it. It'd be a good to see. Give me an idea of what I'm going to have to play with.
Okay. Give me a sec. I'll pull up the patch. What's the latest one? 238, I believe. I was not prepared for this, but it's good.
The UX team, keeping you on your toes since 2008.
Just making sure I have the last patch. Yes. Okay. So that's 238. Cache rebuilds. Let's see if it's on my screen. Oh wait, let me share my screen too. You can see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so it actually works. That's good. So what we did here was implement the design update for issue 2113931, and it has history. So what this does is it proposed a design update for the 7th theme. It has a new drop zone area and add file button to upload new files. The progress indicator was moved to a follow-up issue, so that's not in here. And the remove button we demoed before, that we also now have in the media library, was also in here. So that's basically the scope of this patch. So what we have right now is when I start tabbing, I tab to the upload field first, which I can pull up with my space bar. After that, you tab to the add file button, which also pulls up the...
Okay, so what's the difference between those two?
The first drop zone area is the actual file input, and the second one is a button that also triggers a click on the file input.
Okay, so as a mouse user, what would I be doing?
You would click either the plus or you would click the add file. You can click on both, really.
Okay, and what I'm trying to figure out is why have we got two of them? One is...
so this technically is the file input field.
Input equals file. Yep.
These, let me see if I could pull up here. So this is the input, and we have the button. It's here, and we added that via JS to, because it's in the design, really.
So what is this, the add file text button?
The text of it is add file, and there's
what is it for? Because this is a button, it doesn't have a type attribute, so that means it's a submit button. So
it's not really a submit button. This button triggers a click on the file input to make you open the, I don't know, the local file browser.
It's a button that presses a button.
It's a button that presses the input field.
Okay. See, the thing about the input field is the input field doesn't look like a button. It looks like a
drop zone thing.
Yeah. So what I think I would do is I would kind of make it so that if you're a mouse user, maybe you can click the button or you can drag it onto the zone. If you're a keyboard user, I don't like the idea of there being two tab stops for two buttons that basically do the same thing. I think that could be confusing, especially since one of them has got a clear text label and the other one, I'm just not sure what that would be. There's no need for two tab stops. And then, what would these be announced as to a screen reader user? The first one, the input, is
yeah, so
does it have a name?
The first one is named image. I think that it reads the file field, the label element for the input. So the input would be announced as image. And the button would be announced as add file.
Okay, well, let's move on to see the rest of the thing in action. But we got two buttons that both do the same thing.
Yes. So let me just add an image. So after you add an image, you get a preview here. You get the file name, the file size, and you tab from the file name to the remove button to the alternative text.
Okay, sure. And the remove is after the alternative text, right?
Currently, the remove is after the file name.
Oh, hang on. Which did focus land on?
A focus landed on the file name. So let me just go again. So when I tab now, I get the file name.
Ah, right. Yeah, focus actually went to the container div or whatever it is, and then a tab took you to the file name. Yeah, okay, that'll do.
Yeah, so I think that it doesn't change really from the file field as it was before.
Yeah. As long as your focus doesn't end up right back at the top of the form, that's what we want to avoid.
So yeah.
So we might be able to do the same trick as we do on that we saw earlier with that tab order.
So the remove button comes last.
Yeah.
Well, I had to pull some tricks to make sure that the remove button and the file name play nicely, especially when you have longer file names. So I can't tell the remove button absolutely in this case.
Okay.
Let me see if I can do.
I think having remove between would be a mistake. That's what I'm worried about.
So you get
file, then you've got remove, then you've got that. Just seems a bit weird. I don't think it's an absolute blocker though.
Yeah. So because if we style it absolutely, then especially in translated sites, I don't know how much space this would take.
Oh yeah, if you had a delete button in German or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I had to, I don't know, pull them together and give this like this now flex items, so one can be fixed positioned and one is filling the rest of the space. In responsive, yeah, well, in mobile designs, this is probably the best we can do, but
I like wrapping the long file name. I think that truncating file names is a bad idea because
yeah, we had that in a previous version of the patch, and I also saw immediately
underscore one, and that's the actual differentiator. Is that underscore one probably at the end? And if you truncate it, you can't tell them apart. So that's all right so far. Yeah.
Yeah, basically that's all there is to it.
I'd like to try that in a few other places. I'll take that for a spin in a screen reader. And
so, do you have a tip on how we can maybe avoid the tabbing on either the input or the button?
Yeah. So I think I would make the visible button that says add text the kind of thing that most assume that that's the thing that is the most inclusive control, because it's got visible text and it looks like a button, so that's going to be good for a speech control user. It's got visible text. The fact that it looks like a button is good for any sighted user. The fact that it's announced as a button, for the drop zone, I don't think that looks like a button exactly. The dashed thing kind of looks like, it just looks like a lot of drop zone styles I've seen before. The fact that there's a hover thing says, oh, okay, this can do something.
Yeah, you actually don't really need it. It's just a bonus.
I mean, what you can do is actually make sure that it has hover and drag and drop type behavior, but actually take it out the tabbing order and take it out of the screen reader experience.
So can we add an attribute to the input field to make sure it's skipped in the tabbing order and for screen readers?
Yeah, to prevent any keyboard user finding it, you'd want a tab index -1.
Let's see if this works.
That's right. And that won't be in the tabbing order anymore.
Perfect.
But a screen reader user will still find it if they're reading rather than tabbing. So you would also want to put something like an ARIA hidden attribute on there. So that's ARIA-hidden equals true. And that will prevent that input from being picked up by a screen reader. In fact, it will prevent that ever actually leaving the browser, in a sense. And so if you were using it in reading mode instead of tabbing mode, then you wouldn't pass that. And if you were to open up the voiceover rotor, you wouldn't see it listed amongst the buttons. What bothers me, though, is that the add file has got the role of button, but the thing that we're hiding has got the role of a file input. Now, I'm not actually sure how a file input is normally announced in all screen readers. I think they're actually announced as buttons, because if you have an unstyled file input, it actually physically has a button in it, like we currently have before this.
That's correct. It's announced as well the field label. So in this case, image. This field. This is a button. And
yeah, it's announced as a button. The role is a button. Name, role, value. In which case, I think that as long as that, I think we can actually hide the input, the file input, as long as we should make sure that add file button that presses a button, we should do proper cross-browser testing on that to make sure that does have the correct button that presses a button effect in all browsers.
Yeah, well, this has been tested very extensively already, but not in in screen readers yet. So I used the macOS voiceover, but besides that, probably we could use a little more testing. But is there anything we should add to the button then?
So I would probably, if this thing isn't intended as a submit in its own right, it's a button that presses a button. I don't know what click handlers you've got on it, but I will probably put the type equals button attribute. If you, when you have a button, you should put type equals button on it if it's kind of like used for a custom purpose. And the reason for that is if you omit that attribute, then the default is type equals submit. And so it's just a safeguard that this won't be picked up as a submit button by anyone.
Do we need any ARIA rules on this as well?
No. No, you don't at all.
Okay. Well, I will at least make sure that the type is button is added, and we will add the, what was it, ARIA hidden and the tab index on the input field.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we can get this done as well.
Yeah, if you do that, and then I'll give it another test.
I will make sure it's
and then
updated tonight, and I will ping you when it's done.
Cool. It's awesome. a little bit over-engineered, but sometimes that's kind of what you have to do. I didn't like the idea of two buttons that did the same thing. That's just weird.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. I just didn't know how big of an issue it was, and also didn't know how to fix it properly. So it's good that we had a quick chat. Yeah,
it's good though that we've got the add file as a button, because that's like anyone who doesn't get that it's a drop zone is still allowed to use it, and anyone who doesn't have a mouse is going to be able to use it too.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I like it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Andrew.
Guys, we have a minute left, minute and a half. This is a miracle.
OMG. Cool.
Well, I'm satisfied. This was productive.
Yeah. Great work, everybody. Okay. Why don't we
Yes.
all drop the phone and get back to 8-7 then?
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody. Awesome.
Bye, everyone.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.